Debate on Duo Discourse.
And welcome to you, the listener. We are about to get into what might be the most fundamental paradox of creation.
Right. The paradox is, well, it's this. If you start with the idea of a creator who is all-powerful, all-good, and this is the key, all-knowing, why would that creator start a project, a whole universe, knowing from the very beginning that it was going to go wrong? That it would involve so much failure and suffering?
It really is the ultimate design problem, isn't it? I mean, if you're an engineer and your blueprint has a catastrophic flaw, a bug that you know will cause misery,
You scrap it.
you scrap it. You don't build the bridge. The logical thing to do is just delete the project before it even starts. So why proceed?
Exactly. Why not just hit delete? And the sources we've looked at suggest we have to reframe the whole reason for creation in the first place.
It wasn't born out of a need or some kind of lack because the creator is self-sufficient.
So what was it then?
The view is that creation is an overflow.
An overflow.
An overflow of divine love and goodness. The goal isn't efficiency, it's relationship.
A relationship. But, okay, if that relationship is almost guaranteed to end in betrayal and failure on a cosmic scale, that seems like a huge, huge risk.
It is.
So what quality does the created being need to have to make that relationship genuine enough to be worth that cost?
And that's the core of it. Free will, autonomous choice. The idea is that the creator valued a real, freely chosen relationship more than a universe of perfect but essentially robotic beings.
So the risk is the price.
The risk you're pointing to is, by definition, the price of authentic love.
So our mission today is to really unpack the justifications for taking that risk. We're looking for the teleology, the ultimate purpose that makes this whole flawed journey make sense. Okay, so let's start with definitions. What do we even mean by failure here? It can't just be about, making simple mistakes.
No. We're talking about moral failure, transgression, rebellion, sin, the deliberate turning away from the divine purpose.
How do we grasp the scope of that?
Well, a really useful concept comes from the Islamic tradition. It's the idea of fitna.
I know fitna gets translated as like discord or strife, but I get the sense it's deeper than that.
It's much deeper. Etymologically, the word relates to refining precious metals. Fatantu al-fida wal-dahab. I assayed the silver and gold.
Assayed.
You melt it down. You apply heat and trial to separate the impurities, the dross, from the pure metal.
Wow, okay. That changes the entire picture. Creation isn't just a peaceful garden, it's a furnace. It's a testing ground by design.
Precisely. Fitna means trial, persecution, temptation. The world is set up not for comfort, but as a crucible. The failure of humanity is what makes the heat of that trial necessary.
And what's the purpose of the test? If it's just to separate good from bad, aren't we back at the problem of a predetermined outcome?
It leads to what's seen as a more fundamental purpose, the manifestation of the divine attributes.
The knowing of God.
The knowing of God, yes. Think about it. Some of God's most profound attributes, names like the forgiver, Al-Ghafar, or the merciful, Al-Rahman.
They don't make sense without their opposite.
They only become meaningful. They only become truly known in a context where failure and repentance exist. You can't know mercy if you've never done anything that needs forgiving.
So a world of perfect beings would only ever know God as a creator, but never as a redeemer.
Never. The failure is the negative space, you could say, that allows the most profound attributes to be revealed.
But this is where we hit that logical wall. If failure is required to show mercy, and God knew the failure was coming, how can we say humans are free? It feels like it completely undermines the idea of free will you started with.
It does. And this is the famous compatibility problem. It's the friction between divine foreknowledge and human freedom. The classic argument for determinism goes all the way back to Aristotle.
The sea battle argument.
The sea battle, right. It's simple. Let's take the statement. A sea battle will happen tomorrow. If that sentence is true right now, then the battle must happen.
And if it's false now, it can't happen.
Exactly. So if every statement about our future choices is already eternally true or false, then all our efforts, all our planning, it's all pointless. The outcome is fixed.
So if the statement, I will make a bad choice next Friday, is already true, how can I possibly choose to do otherwise? My free will feels like an illusion.
And that's the power of the fatalist argument. But the counter-argument points to a logical mistake. It's called the modal fallacy.
Okay, unpack that.
It's about confusing what is true with what is necessary.
How are they different here?
Okay, imagine a time traveler. They go to next Friday, they see you make that bad choice, and then they come back to today. They now know what you will do,
Right.
but did their knowledge cause you to do it?
No. The choice was still mine.
It was still yours. They just have timeless access to the truth of your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Creator, the knowledge of the choice doesn't compel the choice. The choice remains contingent.
So God's omniscience just encompasses that future contingent truth. My free action is what makes God's knowledge true, not the other way around.
Precisely. Your free choice makes the proposition true. The knowledge doesn't predetermine the action.
Okay, this connects directly to the free will defense against evil.
Mm-hmm.
But if God is omnipotent, why couldn't he just create beings who were free, but, just happen to always choose the good thing?
It's a great question. And philosophers like Alvin Plantinga would say that God's omnipotence doesn't mean he can do the logically impossible.
Does make a square circle.
Exactly. And creating a being that is significantly free, meaning capable of real moral choice, but also morally incapable of sin, that's argued to be a logical contradiction.
So if genuine freedom was a top priority, the possibility of failure had to be part of the deal.
It was the necessary condition for a genuine relationship.
So if failure is built in, let's look at the developmental purpose. If this world isn't a finished product, what is it? What is it for?
Well, one major theodicy, the Iranian theodicy, sees the world as a veil of soul-making.
A soul-making factory, basically.
In a sense, yes, it's a process.
And this is based on the distinction popularized by John Hick between being made in God's image versus God's likeness.
Correct. The image is the starting point. It's the potential. It's our consciousness, our basic moral sense, our reason. It's the hardware.
But the likeness,
Yeah.
that's the achievement. That's what we become.
That's what you earn. The likeness is about hard-won moral growth. It's about developing character by facing real challenges.
You can't have courage without danger. You can't have compassion without suffering.
Think about it. Is a robot that's programmed to be generous actually virtuous?
No, it's just following its programming.
But a person who chooses to be generous when they're tired or when it puts them at risk, that's a genuine virtue. The resistance of a difficult, fallen world is the necessary training ground for those virtues.
So earned virtues are better than ready-made perfections.
They're seen as a higher good.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a very provocative theological idea, felix culpa.
The happy fault.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like celebrating the fall.
It's a shocking phrase, but the idea is that the fall, while a tragedy, was ultimately fortunate because it set the stage for the supreme act of divine redemption.
So without the failure, you couldn't have had the ultimate display of grace.
Exactly. Without sin, God's most sacrificial attributes, justice and mercy, could never have been demonstrated in their fullness. The cross is seen as the event that perfectly harmonizes justice, because the penalty is paid, and mercy, because the sinner is spared.
And that demonstration of being both just and the justifier is considered a greater glory than an unfallen world could ever offer.
That's the argument.
But this theological logic, as internally consistent as it might be, really starts to break down when we face the raw reality of suffering.
And this is where we have to turn to the great objector, Fyodor Dostoevsky, specifically to Ivan Karamazov.
Ivan's rebellion.
His fierce moral rebellion. He basically says, I don't care about your future harmony. I don't care about heaven if the price for it is the unavenged tears of one innocent child.
He focuses on the suffering of children because it's so clearly unearned. It's inexpiable.
It can't be justified. He sees it as totally absurd. And his thought experiment just drives the point home with brutal force.
The architect challenge.
Yes. He asks you, the listener, imagine you're the architect of human destiny. You can create a future of perfect happiness and peace. But to do it, you have to torture one single baby to death. Would you consent to be the architect?
And the answer is obviously no.
His point is that no future good can justify that present innocent evil.
And this critique is taken even further by the philosopher D.Z. Phillips, who attacks the whole project of theodicy itself.
Phillips argues that the moment you try to sit down and calmly, rationally come up with reasons why God might allow for, say, the Holocaust,
You're already in a morally questionable place.
you risk a profound moral corruption. He says trying to maintain a contemplative disposition toward that kind of horror is to explain it away, rather than to be properly horrified by it.
So he's saying that the intellectual exercise itself is a moral failure.
Yes. And that claiming God's morality is just beyond our comprehension is a way of justifying the morally incomprehensible. It empties morality of all meaning.
So if the intellectual justification fails under moral pressure, What is the alternative? What's the response?
The novel itself provides the response. Through the characters of Father Zosima and Alyosha, they move from theory to action. Zosima agrees with Ivan. Child suffering is an abomination.
But his solution isn't a better argument.
No. He says the answer isn't found in a cloistered room. The answer is to practice active love.
And that's not just a feeling. He defines it as labor, fortitude, real work.
Tangible effort. And it comes from this mystical sense of universal responsibility. Zosima says everyone is really responsible to all men, and for everything.
Because it's all connected.
All is like an ocean. A touch in one place causes a ripple on the other side of the world. So the problem of evil is actually the problem of our own lack of active love.
So the human response is to become the incarnation of that love inside the broken world. Like Alyosha giving Grushenka the onion.
The onion. It's a beautiful metaphor for a single, small, real act of goodness. The answer to suffering isn't an idea, it's a deed.
This also feels connected to the idea of common grace. If the world is this broken system, what stops it from just immediately collapsing into total chaos?
That's a great point. Common grace is the idea of God's unearned, merciful action in the world, given to everyone, believer or not. It's what holds things together.
So how does it work?
Two main ways. First, it restrains evil. It's why societies can form laws and have a basic sense of civic virtue, even among people who don't believe in a creator. It puts the brakes on total anarchy.
It maintains the integrity of the crucible, so to speak.
Yes, and second, it bestows goodness. The beauty of a sunset, the joy of discovery, a good harvest, the sun and rain on the just and the unjust alike. It ensures that life, even in this fallen state, is still full of meaning and opportunities for that soul-making.
So after all of this, for you, the listener, we have the necessity of free will, we have the value of struggle, the display of grace, but we still have Ivan's powerful objection to the cost. What's the core tension that we're left with?
I think the ultimate why this specific path, with all its known agony, was chosen, that remains a profound mystery. We can understand the mechanics of the system, maybe, but not the consciousness that chose it.
And the philosophical tension doesn't go away. Can you really separate intellectual analysis from moral outrage when you're talking about the worst kinds of evil?
You have to hold them in tension, the theological logic of freedom and the moral absurdity of its cost.
It seems to me this whole deep dive connects that concept of fitna, the world as a crucible, with Azisim's call for active love. If it's all one interconnected fabric, then maybe the challenge isn't to solve the puzzle of suffering from a distance.
The challenge for you is to consider what act of genuine, tangible love, what your onion is that you're adding to that fabric today.
So we've gone from the paradox of a flawed creation to the logic of free will through the immense moral weight of suffering and landed on this embodied response of active love.
And maybe a final thought for you to take away is this. The real question might not be whether God should have created a world with failure. It might be whether a world that demanded the ultimate self-sacrifice, that required incarnate love to enter into it, is ultimately more glorious and more revealing than a perfect world that never needed redemption at all.